The Nationalist Socialist Party of America versus the village of Skokie. Also known as the Skokie Affair, this was a case that came up during 1978 that involved the NSPA, who was led by Frank Collins, and a small town of Illinois whose population was mostly Jewish. However, let's back up a bit. If you're a history buff, you'll probably know what's going on here. But the Nationalist Socialist Party is also known as the Nazis, a group that was led by Adolf Hitler during World War II. They pretty much hated anyone who wasn't white or that was Jewish. To reiterate, Skokie was a town mostly populated by Jews, and a portion of them were Holocaust survivors. Oh yeah, the Holocaust. That was a situation in which millions of Jews were killed. Anyways, the Nazis, now known as the NSPA, were planning a march in Marquette Park, an area in Chicago. But the Park District asked for a large insurance bond in order to indemnify them in the case that there was damage from the anticipated violence. Of course, this was intended to discourage the NSPA from marching. In turn, the NSPA threatened to march in Skokie. The conflict went to court, and in the Circuit Court of Cook, the case was ruled in the manner that the NSPA was not allowed to march in uniform, march or walk around displaying the swastika, or distribute any pamphlets or materials inciting or promoting hatred against Jews, amongst others. Obviously, the NSPA felt this was impeding their right to assembly and expression. The American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU, since we're using abbreviations, then represented the NSPA in court, and an appeal was made to the Illinois Supreme Court. The decision was not overruled, so things eventually ended up in the hands of the U.S. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ordered the Illinois Supreme Court to hear the case, and now it had bounced to them. So the question was, should the court deny the NSPA the right to display in Skokie? The NSPA argued that no one else was required to pay insurance, so neither should they. On the other hand, the Jewish residents felt that seeing the swastika was the equivalent of being physically attacked. In the end, the court ruled that the NSPA was to be allowed to march and was allowed to wear swastika armbands, as they were a form of free symbolic speech, and they did not incite immediate violence. The U.S. Supreme Court let this decision stand. As a result, this shows that under the First Amendment, a group is allowed the freedom of assembly, the freedom of symbolic speech, and the freedom to distribute pamphlets, even if it is all representative of a hate group. In other words, no matter what your opinions are, you are free to express them as long as immediate violence is not promoted, and the freedom of assembly applies. The NSP eventually held 3 rallies, but none of them were actually in Skokie. The press coverage, they felt, would make a rally redundant.